I think that's an important thing when people are listening to this too. It's like, you should be selfish. You should be selfish. Your intent should not be to be selfish at the cost of others, but to grow your own life. And there's a way that you could do that in a win-win-win fashion. Welcome to the Lendsetter Show, the show that blends the art of sales, the science of success, and the strategies of real experts in the mortgage and sales industries to help you grow your client base, increase your revenue, and get in control of your life. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley. Kick back, enjoy the episode, and don't forget to subscribe. What's going on, friends? Welcome to this episode of the Lendsetter Show. I'm your host, Preston Schmidley, and I have with us one of our members of our program, Tyler Shearer. And, I've actually really enjoyed watching him because he has a marketing background himself. And it's, honestly, it's pretty rare that I want to engage in, I don't want to say a lot of conversation, but, get too involved from a podcast and having those kind of conversations with somebody that's only been in our program for 6 weeks. But I felt like there was a lot to talk about here because you obviously come from marketing background, Tyler. You do what I would consider really good short form video content, and you've been doing that now. You have a really solid workflow for that, and I think that there's probably some nuggets that loan officers out that, especially in this market, are struggling right now that could really get from hearing more about you and what you got going on and what you're doing. So, with that said, I'm really excited to have you on the show, Tyler. For those that are listening, why don't you give a kind of a background? I know you went from being in the credit union world and now you're a broker. Why don't you talk a little bit about your path so that they fundamentally understand that about you, and we'll just go where this conversation goes.
So it started, I was door-to-door alarm salesman, learned how to do that because I love marketing, have such a passion for it. Door-to-door company basically put me into their marketing program because they're like, hey, you know how to sell, but you also know how to market so we can sell more. So I did that for almost 7 years, and side by side, I was doing photography, weddings, backcountry snowmobiling. And then I was like, crap, I want to get back into sales. And that's when someone was like, dude, become a mortgage lender. Got picked up from a local credit union, worked there for 5 years, helped grew a team up here in North Idaho. And I just wanted more. My ceiling was starting to be reached. And so I jumped in the broker world, and that's when I found you guys, the Good Vibe Squad. So I could do everything and anything I feel like I want to do for my business.
I love it. What do you feel were some of your, revelations, insights? Like, you went from credit union to broker. Why don't you talk a little bit about like the impact that's made in your life? I mean, just that alone, I think, would be an interesting starting point to kind of orbit around.
Yeah, totally. So I think sometimes we get caught up in we want structure but don't want structure. Yeah. And every entrepreneur is that way. And I'm one that actually has like almost Rob Dyrdek type calendar in the back. Like, I got to hit X, Y, and Z by this time and try to be as efficient as I can because I am a husband, a father, and a golfer and all these other things, right? But what I noticed was the credit union was trying to fit me into their mold. And when you start to grow and start reaching, levels that you've never reached before, you start feeling like you want to be around people like yourself and McBilly that are, heck, you guys just went on a coaching tour for 2 weeks? Because
it's like a month. We went from we had the Stake of the Union, which is like a small, intimate mastermind we have with some of our friends where we literally just go, we meet quarterly in different random cities. Used to be across the United States, but we're actually planning for one to Tokyo. But the whole concept of it is around we go places where we can just by day mastermind and by night eat really expensive beef. So that's why we actually want to go to Tokyo, is because we actually want to choose the cow and get some Wagyu. Yeah. It was a wild story, but
that's huge though. When you're in sales, if you're not around like-minded people that are pushing and leveling up all the time and lifting where they stand and say, hey, come follow me, instead of coddling you. Yeah. That starts to get old, man. You want to hit big marks, and the only way to do that is to be around people that are willing to get uncomfortable every day.
I mean, I feel it. Yeah. So we went from that one. We went we went to Ohio to meet with Dan Kennedy for a day working on Good Vibe Squad, who's one of my main mentors, for a long time. And then we went to Mexico to spend a week with Russell Brunson in the Inner Circle, which is his mastermind that we're in. So yeah, it's been a month of just I have never had so much clarity. I've never been okay, time to work, because there's so much shit in my head right now, Right. So
yeah, love it, dude. That's sick.
Yeah.
Where's top 2 takeaways?
Oh man, top
They don't. You could probably elaborate, but top two. Everyone says top three, but what's top two?
yeah, top two. So it's interesting. We had a lot to marinate on. So actually, the series of the three felt like a really solid order, and it was just a really really. I'm grateful that there was such proximity between all of those events, because I felt like the insights that we had from the State of the Union became more polished, and we peeled more layers off when we met with Dan Kennedy for the day. And then we got back. We had one day in between Ohio and Mexico, and so we were really fresh off the Dan Kennedy stuff. And then we went into Russell's world for a week, and I just met with all these entrepreneurs that are doing anywhere between like 3 million for the most part, up to like 500 million a year. And so it's like just spending time in that environment just continued to morph these thoughts in a really beautiful way. So by the end of it, I think part of it was the first thing is stop playing small. We met with we had a really intimate session with an author, Benjamin Hardy,
Awesome.
who he co-authored a book. Well, it's coming out, but by the time we're recording this in April, it comes out next month. But it's actually a really good book. I'm 100 pages into it. It's mind-blowing. It's called 10x is easier than 2x. It's by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Phenomenal read so far. They co-authored The Gap and the Gain, Who Not How. Benjamin Hardy
also changed my life.
Isn't that a good book?
Oh my gosh. Like in the mortgage industry, everybody went totally to The Gap. And you read that book and you're like, shut up, get to the gain, stop being a little bit, and like get to work. Be grateful for what you have. Get some momentum and just go. And I was like, dude, this book is sick.
Yeah, no, The Gap in the Gain was transformative. Yeah. So 10x is easier than 2x is like Gap in the Gain on steroids and like meth. It's a whole nother level of Gap in the Gain. And one of the cool things about it, I think McBee and I both feel the same way about this, was the idea of 10x is easier than 2x was empowering, because to go 2x is linear, right? So what he talks about is to go 2x, you hang on to about 80% of what you know and believe currently, and you have to change about 20% of what you know and believe. But it's incremental gains. That's linear growth. It's not that hard to do 2x conceptually, but it's actually harder to implement, because there's thousands of ways to get to 10x or to 2x, but there's very limited ways to 10x something, right? And so he uses this example of his son Caleb, who is a tennis player, and he was at one of his son's coaching sessions, because he's trying to get the reason he has a coach is he's trying to get a scholarship to go to college to play tennis. It's just a plenty fine goal, right? But his coach asked him during one session, and he said, "Hey, Caleb, have you ever thought about going pro?" And Caleb's like, "No, not really. I just want to get to college." So on the ride home, Ben asked Caleb, he said, "Have you thought anything more about what your coach said?" And he went, "I don't know, not really." He goes, "Well, would you like to go pro? Like, do you think that'd be a fun life for you?" And he goes, yeah, I think so. And so they started talking more about it. And he was like, where we live in Orlando, there's probably, over 1,000 coaches that can pretty easily help my son get into college to play tennis. He said, but if we shift the goal to pro, right? If we go that high, there's probably less than 5 coaches that can actually help us do it. And that's assuming we need one coach. We'd probably need more than one coach. And so just by shifting the where we headed changes what we do to get there, right? And so he's like, to go pro, you have to be willing to let go of 80% of what you're doing. And there's probably 20% of what you're already doing now that works and you should keep doing. But you have to be willing to let go of most of what you know and go through the uncomfortable hero's journey of becoming this person that can be pro. Whereas if you just want to go to college, you just got to change 20%. You're already 80% there. That's fine. And this incremental changes will get you there. And so it was a really cool thing. And it made McBee and I kind of look at even Good Vibes Squad and go, we're kind of linearly growing. I mean, we've done a lot of cool things, and I'm pretty open about this. We do about 5 million in revenue, and our goal was 10 million, which is literally 2x. And then we started going, what do we want? What's the real goal here, right? Instead of arbitrarily setting a money number that based on just the progression, it's like, what are we really after? So we got some new goals, which I think is really exciting. And so that was really I would say the main set of takeaways from that was just the orbiting around the 10x is
that speaks, man. That speaks to me like huge right now, because going out on my own, I've actually went ahead and like hired you guys, which is not only leads but also coaching. I've also I'm a 5 handicap golfer, right? And I'm just tired of just being there. I want to elevate and just get down to scratch because I want to. So I hired a golf coach, right? And that's so relatable, because there's things that we do that we think we can fix, but the moment you hire someone in from the outside, they see something this small that can change the impact, especially in a golf swing, right? Like, you can change 80%, going to your analogy, within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was worth every single penny paying him to do that. And I've done that with all my short form, videos and trying to pump out, YouTube content. I went and hired a video guy, even though I have a background in it. That's not worth my time. It's worth going and hire someone that is like fluid and an expert and that is on top of things, where my time is, cool, I show up for an hour. I've thought through all my content. Let's buzz through this. And he cranks it all out for me. And then I go back to being a loan officer, husband, a father. It's like prioritizing your time is like,
it's great.
It's huge, but it's a hard lesson learned. Here I am almost turning 36 next month. And like 10 years ago, I would have been like, dude, I got this. It's all on me. Yeah. Now it's like, I'm willing to write a check for someone to actually elevate me 10x instead of double my business.
Well, and I think it goes back to the concept of, would you rather have a small piece of a big pie or a big piece of a small pie, and that's kind of there's a certain point where the pie is what the pie is, unless you're willing to chop it up, It gets harder to make the pie bigger the bigger the pie gets, right? And so there's a certain level where, you could, and if your goal is like, I just want small, lean, I don't want a team, I just, it's like, okay, great, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the biggest thing from that session with Benjamin was knowing what you really want, right? Because there are people that want for the right reasons to keep something small. Cool. There are people that for the right reasons want something big, right? And everything in between. And it's like, as long as you know the why. I was talking about this on my peak performers call in our Lendsetter membership the other day, and I was talking about beliefs and standards, right? Because the desire for the call actually, and the intent for the call, because we have a few people in the program, especially in California, I'm very transparent about this because I think it's a healthy discussion, that are saying that it's, well, there's been a variety of forms it's taken, the idea is that, one thing that was brought up, and these are beliefs and judgments, right? But one thing that was brought up is that people that can qualify for homes in California aren't on Facebook. And it's like, okay, well, there's no data to back that up, first of all. But secondly, it's like, we're not selling Lamborghinis, guys. Let's reel this in a little bit. Everybody, first of all, damn near is on Facebook. And secondly, everybody needs shelter. If you overlay those two things together, let's chill, It's like, but that's the idea of beliefs, right? It's like, I've just learned in this business, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. But that doesn't just go to the what you want. It also applies to the how. If you believe you can grow a business with direct response marketing, direct to consumer marketing, if you believe you can grow a business through paid traffic, client acquisition strategies, then you're right. If you believe you can't, you're right. Right. So not only does whether you believe you can or you can't for the outcome apply, it also applies to the method in which we get there. Right. And that's actually one of the cool things I respect about you is, you came from being primarily referral based, even though you had a marketing background, and now you're doing video, you're paying somebody to do a lot of the editing and stuff for you, even though that's a skill you have, because your goal is to scale and grow, smaller piece of a bigger pie. And even with that, and you already had success, you still chose to hire us to help you build out that, what we call the mortgage freedom flywheel, or if you want to just simplify it down to a direct to consumer system that helps you build new relationships. So I think
that comes with clarity, right? Like, you got to have a vision, you got to have your why, you got to have of who the freak you are, like what you really want. Like, my goal is to make 100 million, right? Or 100 million in volume. And I knew that I could do that at the last place. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go put systems in place to, one, keep myself accountable, but two, that I can scale. Because at the end of the day, time is time. And if you can't use your time correctly or the way it should be, you're not going to go anywhere. And one thing that's really annoying, like just hot, soft, like soapbox right now.
Yeah.
hate how lenders are just finding excuses for everything. Lean into the freaking market. Like, sales are sales. Like, if you want to go grind, go knock doors. Like, you got to play the numbers game. You got to just knock doors, perfect your craft, get better, elevate yourself, have people like you. And I mean, I have 5 other like people that are in sales, whether they're in solar or insurance, that I pitch every once in a while. Like, what do you think about this? Well, change this word, change your tone. Like, that's what a true salesman or true top producer wants, is like other people to critique them, to make them elevate. And so many times in sales, we have people that are like, hey, can I just pay you so I can close something? That's like, such a garbage way to like sell people. Like, and that's so not real. Like, your experience comes across as fake. Like, lean into the market, lean into this rates, lean into low inventory. The facts are the facts, but like, are you looking at the 5-year play or are you looking at the 6-month play? You can tell the moment you start talking to an LO that they're looking for instant gratification of 6 months. Like, Good Vibe Squad is like, it's a year commitment for me, because I knew it wasn't going to be much for the first few months, because I had to learn the process. I had to learn the flow. But by year, like month 6 and 9, I hope I'm talking to you and you're like, dude, how are you closing so many? That's the goal, right?
Well, you know, and I think you have a lot of the framework for that. You know, I've you just said something that I'm a big believer in. You got to sell what you got, you know, and I think that this is something that you and I can appreciate, going through multiple different sales. Like, I've done sales for about 20 years. I get the vibe you've done it for most of your life too. You know, in 2020, 2021, you add rate, you sell rate. You know, in 2022, 2023, you got more inventory, you sell inventory. I mean, what do you got? You know, you can. There's all these people that focus on the sky's falling, it's hard out there, rates are high, inventory is low. It's like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. You know, I had a conversation with a producer, and he's partnered with another producer of similar success, who does 150 million volume. Between the two of them, there's 300 million combined in 2022. And it's like, people talk about recessions, people talk about how hard it is, people talk about how you can't close loans. They did 300 million between the two of them. I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, tell me where the recession is. You know, I mean, it's real for some people, but it's like, that's a choice. And that's a hard thing to hear, because, you know, it's like that. I understand that feels like gaslighting to somebody that's in it, but it's like, there's evidence of success. The 4-minute mile's been broken. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about that it can, or are we talking about how? You know, so that's kind of interesting that you said what you said there. I'd actually be curious, Tyler. So, you know, you haven't been with us very long, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, but I mean, I'm always a fly on the wall, and I'm always keeping an eye. You know, my philosophy is, there's 2 reasons why I know a client's name at this point, because we have, you know, over 250 clients currently. Either you're doing something I'm impressed by, or your name's come up in a leadership huddle and I'm thinking about like canceling the relationship because of the, you know, whatever dynamic, you know, we enrolled somebody we shouldn't have enrolled, right? And that's rare. But I'm very impressed by a good group of our clients these days. But, you know, obviously I've had my eye on you, and I've liked a lot of the stuff you're doing. I like your video content. I think that you have a great mindset and the right, you know, you got a good head on your shoulders about this.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about, you know, you went from credit union to broker. You already had a successful business. You would have been fine without Good Vibe Squad, which are my favorite clients, by the way. Not because it takes pressure off of us. We still show up the same, but it's not, you know, I've always had this saying of winners win, right? And, you know, one of the interesting things, this is an observation from earlier, some of the people that not only have the best mindset, but also have consistent and growing success, oddly enough, door-to-door sales seems to be a staple. I've had a handful of these calls recently where it's either been vacuums, encyclopedias, alarm systems, or life insurance. And I'm just like, how cool is that? You know, I mean, part of me goes, I don't wish that on anybody. And then part of me goes, it's something everybody should do.
Oh, it's brutal, dude. Like, I remember knocking in freaking Sacramento or the Bay Area selling alarms, and it's hot as all get out, and you're just sweating your freaking huevos off, right? And totally just getting doors pounded in your face. But like, there's just something you learn about grit. There's something you learn also about yourself. Like, you learn very quickly, I don't sell like him, I just sell like Tyler. And the moment you find that out, you're like, I'm going to be myself, but I'm going to fine tune myself.
Yeah.
I'll not gonna lie. I wasn't great at doing door sales. It just taught me a lot. But some of my buddies have been in that industry for 12 years because they're freaking phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing I love about door-to-door sales is one of two things happens, and very, very rarely something in between. Either the meat grinder just chews you up and spits you out, which is more likely than the opposite,
Yeah, totally.
or excellence is recognized, right? And it's usually early stage excellence, but it's like, when I was doing that in life insurance, I got to the point where after training a few hundred people, I could almost immediately identify an all-star, like this person is going to be fine, and it's really cool to see how, like, just the growth trajectories of those that did good at door-to-door sales, or let me rephrase this, those that survived door-to-door sales, how if you follow their timeline for the next decade or so, there's just like this upward, I don't know what it is. Maybe
it's like a law of increasing returns, right? Because like I can tell you there's 3 of us that were like kind of like this, call it income, and then all of a sudden we hit the right vehicle and it was just like it was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I did mention is like when I got onto the video side, I actually created all the videos for training. So I was hanging out with all the superstars and rock stars of door-to-door world, and I was going on and filming them like knocking doors and picking their brain, and like
cool.
that's what got me like amped up, and like you're reading these self-help books that they are suggesting, and you're like, I'm actually kind of with you, but I'm the guy behind the camera. So like I actually probably learned more doing that than I did.
That's legit.
Degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no better sales education than hanging out with some killers like that. That's awesome, man.
You're like, hold up, you did 500 alarm system sales in 1 year? Like, what the freak? And then you realize, like, he's not a Brad Pitt. He's just a normal dude with a beard out there just hustling. And he just knows how to hustle. And like, this guy was a freaking farm kid from Southeast Idaho that grew up like an hour away from me slinging potatoes, for crying out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's so cool.
When he figured out how to just grind.
So my question for you at this point is, you went from being in a credit union to going broker, and I think like within a month of that transition, you hired us, plus or minus, I think right around a month. What were some of the motivations for you that, I mean, I'd be curious on some level selfishly to know why you decided to go with Good Vibes Squad specifically, but more importantly, I'm curious, like, what led you were already successful, right? What led you to go, you know what, let's do direct to consumer marketing. Let's do this.
First off, just knowing what ClickFunnels are. I mean, you've already mentioned you're in that vibe with all those guys, and I've watched dropship. I've been in startups before where like ClickFunnels are target marketing, right? Like you hit people that are actually motivated, or you're at least dripping in front of them to get in front of them. And as you watch real estate agents, like you talk to them all the time in our world, they're using Boomtown and Zillow, which are just really expensive because it's saturated.
Sure.
And when I started looking into, hey, can I build all these funnels myself? Can I build all these target things? And you start looking at all the compliance and you start looking at all this overhead. You're like, okay, I'm going to need a CRM. I'm going to need to know how to do all this on Facebook. I'm going to have to go get ramped up. It's been 5 years since I've touched Facebook ads and Google ads and analytics. And
it's a different beast, bro.
It's time. And then like, good hell, dude, every time I turned on YouTube, you or McBilly's there like, hey, Warlords, and it's just like, okay, guys, I get it. Let me look into this.
Yeah.
So I go ahead and I look into it, and I get like the first like demo, and I'm like, whoa, right there. Okay, you've hit 5 pain points, and it comes at a cost. But if I'm willing to scale 10x, or like we've already talked about, that's worth the cost of investment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to let you guys do that and me be creative on the video side, which actually gives me momentum to sell. Me posting something is more sales generation for me. It's just like, I liken it to when I was door-to-door sales, I took my, energy drink, took a sip. At 3 o'clock, they dropped me off on some corner in the middle of freaking nowhere, California or Texas. And
Canvas time.
it was it. It was ready to rock and roll with your iPad. So there was something I had to do routinely in order to get my sales process going. And social media does that for me. Just thinking of what kind of value can I bring to people that are around me? How can I influence them? And you guys are already going and getting me leads. So I can do that. I already have my referrals. Hey, I'm doing all these things, but I have to do them better. How do I elevate myself every week 1% better? And Good Vibes Squad provides this wicked CRM. I've probably pushed the limits of it, or asked to push it multiple times. And
I love it.
I'm like, how can you put video in these texts? Can you put video in these emails? Can you do this? Can you do this? I'm like, my poor support guy's like, hold up, dude, hold up. I'm like, okay, but I got 100 leads. I want to start getting my pull-through rate from 10 to 35 or 50. I know the power of video is there, especially going forward. That's why I left the credit union. Was the industry is changing. If Rocket Mortgage can come in with nasty ads and disrupt the space with not great customer service and not Tyler on the other line, and have that direct consumer marketing like you're talking, why can't I do that at a scale that's localized and disrupt this space?
What has been the impact? Because like you said, you're not shy of success. You've definitely already had it, right? Now, obviously, there's always more, but you've done a lot of referral-based business in the past, and like I said, you've had success in the mortgage industry. What do you feel like has been the impact for you to establish a direct-to-consumer system for yourself?
It's the buyer. It's changing. Straight up, the consumer is changing. The consumer is changing so dramatically. We're seeing that. I mean, you see that so much. So I'm a millennial, right? I'm turning 36, so I'm starting to talk to more people like me. They don't want to answer the phone. Now, my dad, he wants to talk to you on the phone. He wants to talk to you about all these things under the sun, and he has a relationship for life. How do I keep in front of you when you have TikTok, Instagrams, YouTube, drip campaigns, text messages, all these things? How do I identify myself just a little bit different, or that I am a mortgage guy, but I'm real? Mm-hmm. And how do I do that when I'm not picking up the phone? Because dude, if I could pick up the phone, I can sell people, right? I know that.
Right.
But do I have the tools to help me elevate, through text or through sending emails that actually mean something, right? So I couldn't do that at the credit union because I had to build their brand, not Tyler's brand. Right. So coming over here, I can send out, tidbits of rates and what's happening with the feds to all my agents. They don't have to respond back to me, but when I see them or talk to them on the phone, they refer back to a video. When I have a lead or a borrower and I send them out, just before this call, I sent out hey, it's Happy Easter. I'm going to be with family. Holler at me if you need anything. Shoot me a text. Happy house hunt, right? That's basically setting an expectation for this weekend. They're like, hey, he's going to be with his family, but he's still available because he cares about me. I can do that in video. If that comes across in a text, that just sounds like, hey, Preston.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that goes back to all, there's three components to human communication. There's the words you use, there's body language and tonality, and the words you use only equate to about 7% of what actually gets across. The other 93% is split between body language and tonality pretty evenly. And it's why would you want to rely on 7% of the message getting across?
Right.
Videos, I feel like it's profound. And, we've been talking for a good while now, just because we've used it internally. We are champions of Loom, the tool that we use. And
totally.
The thing I love about it is I can shoot it when it's convenient for me. You can watch it when it's convenient for you. I can send it via text. I can send it via email. If I send it via email, it puts that little GIF, which is kind of disruptive in there of whatever I'm doing, right? So it hooks you in a little bit more than if I just put a YouTube there. So it's a really cool tool, but it allows for you to have what I would consider just barely below an in-person interaction through incredibly scalable means, you know?
And here's like, it kind of getting a little vulnerable with you. It's like all throughout school, I struggle with dyslexia, right? So like you're being told like, hey, you can't really compute at this level because of something that you struggle with. And, you know, you fight your whole life to get around it. Like email, you know, signatures that, you know, have been, you know, read by someone else and all these other things, right? Well, the power of video is it's like, hey, Preston, I just gave you an update. Look at this video.
Yeah.
To the video. I don't have to sit there and type it out and like look like I'm like smarter or whoever. I can actually be 100% myself in video. I can be talking with my hands. I can have a weird little thing with my mouth or whatever it is. And like those people are like, dude, he's real. Like he's not just like a cookie cutter professional. Like he's actually here. I can touch, almost feel and smell or taste, right? And like in marketing, you talk about that a lot, especially with photos, is you want them to engulf like that experience and feel it.
Yeah.
And video's powerful, but I don't know. I'm jazzing on video. It's been like my jam since I left the credit union. Like I'm posting every single day with video. Busting out a YouTube like series of like how to become a broker because no one flipping talks about it.
That's cool.
Just trying to show like, hey, if you want to scale, like I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks I have because I hate to say it, and this might be cocky, but I'll share whatever has made me successful. You still got to walk the walk.
Yeah.
I can share that with you, right? So, and I'm passionate about it. I want to coach you. Like, I think we're all coaches if we're true salesmen.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So you've been doing direct to consumer now for a while. And it sounds like it's been a positive, experience for you from you know, your workflow has kind of evolved with that. Your relationship with buyers has evolved through that. What are some other things you feel like you've been doing that are giving you the edge, setting you up for success? Like when you think formulaically about your life and some of the advantages you have, if you will, what do you feel like some of the things that you've established are in your corner that continue to help? You know, they're wind in your sails that are propelling you forward.
Learning how to delegate and trust people that you put in your team. Mm-hmm. So learning to trust, say, a CRM, or learning to trust that, like, if I jump on a call with you or McBilly, like, I'm going to get value out of it. It's not just like another call just to show up. Because I'm not going to lie, from 9 to 5 during my day, you got to execute that time well. I don't want to set hitter power, right? I want to put money and food on the table. So, like, in the Gap in the Game, there was a story in there where he talks about, you know, the English or Great Britain's rowing team, right? You remember that part?
Yeah. I do.
It's like, hey, you got to make the boat go faster. And that's what I think every single day. So what is going to put food on the table, or what is going to help me achieve that 100 million in a year span, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that with every single activity and being meaningful with it, what the frick are you doing? Yeah. And that's what's cool about the CRM that you guys have. It's been super impactful for that because it's cut down time. And then 2, I can have more meaningful conversations with video. So I use Loom a ton. And what I do is every single LE that I send out, I go line by line. I've gotten so good at like the loans that I've closed now that I can do it in 2 minutes.
Wow.
Right? Like you can bust through every single line. Hey, borrower, this is what your collapsed close looks like. This is what this looks like. Full experience. I'm going to share it with you because it's wicked. Borrower watches the video twice. I get pinged with 2 emails. I'm like, okay, something's up, right?
Yeah.
All of them. They're with the agent. I go, what's up? Did you guys have any questions? Blah, blah. No, we just watched your video twice. We actually got it. But hey, let's talk about this. Guess what?
That's actually brilliant. I've never thought about that, bro. Because like I would refer when I had my insurance brokerage, I used Loom religiously, and I would observe that oftentimes the video would be watched. You know, I'd shoot it at 3 p.m. in the day, and the video would be watched somewhere between like 8 p.m. and 11, right? Usually, and I would notice on average when there was a not a single person, but like a fiance or a marriage or whatever, there would be a second watch like 10, 15 minutes later, right? And I can only imagine with some version of the person I'm talking with primarily goes, oh, that's cool. Here, and check this out. And it's like, you know, it was so valuable. Like I was blown away by how much leverage it gave me in the relationship like, you know, because before somebody would come in, I hated when people would come into my office because I knew that 90 minutes of my life just went away on average, right? 100%. Some people would just come in talking about their dog, their truck, their whatever. And it's like, oh my God, dude, just kill me now. And I could short that. I could cut that down without having to leave my house to like 5-6 minutes. And they were just as excited and happy about it, right? And so that's huge. That's so huge.
And what's cool about that though is like, because I did that video, I could take time to talk about their dogs or cats or whatever happened to them, right? And that on the phone, right? Which is almost like intimate, I guess you could say, is a good word for that. Like you could actually build that relationship and actually get to where like, hey, they're going to remember. Because we just came from COVID. Like I closed a lot of loans up here. And I remember being in Costco, talking on the phone, and I have a voice, right? That is my voice. And the lady behind me goes, hey, Tyler, thanks for closing on my loan. Never met her because it was COVID. She knew who I was because of the signature on my email. Why does she know about me more, right? And that's a prior video.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I think that's a takeaway. That's a definite nugget for those that are there. If you're using Loom or you're not, you need to be using video. And I don't care if it's BombBomb, Loom, whatever. But the cool thing about Loom is you can get notifications. I don't know that it defaults to it. I can't remember. But you should, whether it does or it doesn't, you should be making sure you do get notifications, watch notifications, because talk about, you know, this is a marketing concept. So Dan Kennedy talked about this at the last 2 funnel hacking labs, actually. He was there and he talked about it both times. And this is a concept from the book, The Purpose-Driven Church. Have you heard of that?
I haven't.
So The Purpose-Driven Church is essentially a marketing book wrapped in Christian context to help pastors grow their congregation. And there's a chapter in the book. It's a really good book. It's a really good marketing book. Even though it's not like, they don't talk about it like that. But if you were to read it as a marketer going, okay, I want to learn about marketing, you're going to get some massive takeaways from the Purpose-Driven Church. And there's a chapter in there where he talks about the concept of susceptibility, which is essentially like, you know, where most people try to, you know, they figure, oh, you know, this is kind of the street preacher method. I'll just go out there, I'll start yelling, and you know, whoever it resonates with will come to me. And it's like, that's a way. But he actually talks about how there's no susceptibility in that, because it's like, there's people that might not feel like they need Jesus that day or whatever. They just keep walking, right? But he talks about kind of an alternative strategy, leveraging susceptibility, where you go down to the courthouse and you pull the domestic disputes that happened last week because it's public record, and you send them a Bible with a sales letter about why now is the right time to get Jesus. And they actually talk about the domestic violence, right? It's like, they're not even hiding it. It's like, no, this is the perfect time for you to get to know, right? And it's an awesome explanation of this concept of susceptibility. But I think that's what you're doing. You know, when you see that notification and then watching it, it's top of mind. Like, you literally are being notified that they are investing time into progressing on this homebuyer journey. And that call is like the clouds part and you come down. I would imagine that there's actually people that if you did that and you just didn't even say, hey, I saw you watch the video, they would just feel like that's, wow, this is coincidence, you know? No, it's like, it's not, I got the notification, but...
Well, and you know how like a real true salesman has a script for everything, right? Like he knows his scripts. And like one analogy that I always use when I get them under contract is I say, hey, the application process, you just went through TSA. Yeah. Just got patted down and you were working with your flight attendant at the gate, which was your agent. You just got on the plane. I have a whole village behind me that's going to make sure you get to your destination. And I'm probably not going to talk to you for 2 weeks, because once you get up to elevation and the appraisal's ordered, there's a time where you don't need to talk to me. Take a nap. Yeah. But when we get ready, I'm going to come on air and be like, hey, we're about to land. The appraisal just got back. It's going to, you start to feel like all this anxiety and everything's coming in. I got you. I'm your captain. I'm going to make it to runway and I'm going to make you feel like, hey, this was easy. But once you get to baggage claim, that's on you. You go ahead and move in. That's not me.
Yeah.
And that analogy has helped me be able to like set expectations with that, right? And I think going back to, what we're talking about being top of mind, when they watch a video, I want to be able to jump in and be like, cool, they want something right now. I'm going to go answer it really quick, get it done, and then go back to my flow. And that's selfish of me, but really you're providing a better experience because you want to hit them up 3 days later when they're not thinking about it anymore.
Well, I think the important distinction on that too, bro, is, there's, I think that there's generally in the English language, there's an unhealthy relationship with the concept of selfish, right? And there's an element of like, we shame it. Like being selfish is bad. And it's like, there's self-serving, right? And it's like, I think that it really depends on intention, because it's like, if your goal is to like serve self at the cost of others, that is wrong. And I think that universally most people would go, yeah, okay, well, if we're clarifying words here and words matter, then yes, that's a bad kind of selfishness, right? But there's the selfishness where it's like, I got a kid that's growing up and I want to make sure he has good opportunities. I got a wife I want to take care of. It's like, well, okay, yeah, you're selfish, sure. You are serving your own objectives. However, your intention is to provide, to care for, to support. It's like, so I think that's an important thing when people are listening to this too. It's like, you should be selfish. You should be selfish. Your intent should not be to be selfish at the cost of others, but to grow your own life. And there's a way that you could do that in a win-win-win fashion.
It really does come down. I know we're kind of like all over the place right now, but like it really does come down to setting your own expectations, right? Like, hey, your lack of preparation is not my job to make up for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be proactive and keep you accountable, like whether that's a referring partner or a lead. Hey, I'm going to call you at such and such a time and we are going to have a conversation. Okay, cool. I put the ball back into your court. Sweet. Put it back into mine. Sweet. Moving back, right?
Right.
Keep the conveyor belt going. And like, you almost have to do that in relationships, even with like your wife or friend, right? Like you got to be able to give to them, and also be willing to take at a certain time.
Well, I've always said expectation is the mother of disappointment, right? So it's like, if we don't have good expectations of each other, we essentially have unspoken agreements, right? Where you expect something of me, I haven't outright set a boundary, and now my silence speaks for me. And it's like, I have written a silent contract with you, essentially. And so, expectations are everything, man. I'm huge on expectations, and I think that that's good that you are. One thing I'd like to ask, I want you to imagine you're talking to, and it sounds like there's a lot of resources, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but I want you to imagine that you're talking to a newer loan officer, or maybe somebody that isn't necessarily newer, but they're struggling right now, right? As a lot of people are. What is some advice from somebody who's having success that you would want to give to them?
You got to have a mentor, a coach, and a friend. And my wife happens to be all three at different times, but that's like personal, right? And as a loan officer, you're going to have someone that also is a mentor. So I'm not afraid to ask $100 million loan officer, hey, what's making you tick?
Right.
And I've actually have relationships like that, but I also strive to like find some coaching type things. So here's a brief analogy, like, I just made a switch, so I didn't close a loan for like almost 6 weeks, right? Because you make a switch in the industry, it's going to take you.
Got to rebuild your pipeline.
There's a 90-day process. It's that whole increase of returns, right? Well, what's crazy is because you start doing things and you show up, just freaking show up, for crying out loud. That's half the battle. You start to realize that there's actually a fallen behind you. There's been 3 loan officers that have left other companies, and now I'm kind of somewhat their mentor because I'm a month or 2 months ahead of them. That slingshots your momentum and your energy to get through. And you only do that because, one, you're humble, but you're also thinking, okay, I need a mentor, coach, friend. Like, I need these people in my life to sustain me because you can't be a lone wolf.
Yeah.
And one article that stuck with me way back when was a Harvard business review. Be rich, not king. I think that's what it's called. And it's huge. A king will fall. But being rich takes a mob to work together in order to build something. If you think about you and Big Billy, I don't know your guys' relationship that well, but I've been on a few calls. You ham and egg each other.
Yeah.
His weaknesses are probably your strengths, that type of thing.
For sure. 100%.
And if you don't have that, then you're going back to the word selfish, right? Like, yeah, you really do have to have people in your corner and be very selective with those people, because that's what elevates you.
Yeah.
So as a new loan officer, if you don't have those people, start there. Find somebody that you're going to mirror, someone that you feel like is a mentor. And then 2, find somebody that's actually going to coach you. That's not just going to like tell you how to do it and what to do it, but actually be like, why are you doing that? Ask you the questions of like, but can that go this way? What does that guideline really mean? Don't just go Google stuff. That's what Google's.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I like that, man. Well, so my final question for you, Tyler, is, I always like to ask this because I think that we all have different educational journeys. We all have different journeys in general. And I like to make sure that people kind of have this educational, because like I wasn't very book smart from the traditional method, and I'm very self-taught. I mean, I read a ton, and I like to give that opportunity to somebody else who may not have the resources, but they want it. What is a book in your life that that you feel should be mandatory reading for somebody in the mortgage industry or sales or business in general?
Just one? Come on.
You're welcome to do more, but at least one.
So I read a book every single month. I get it on Audible, and I also have it with my Kindle. And the reason why is like at night I need to read 10 pages to get off my phone and just decompress, and then it helps me go. So cranking out a book a month is huge. If you're not doing that, you should. I can see your wall behind you. It's important to you. In the exact same way I hated reading, now I love it. And stand not reading. So first off, Think and Grow Rich. Hands down, one of the most efficient books to help you think bigger. And then 2, Relentless. I'm a basketball. I love sports. So Tim Grover was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade's like physical and mental coach. And it's not a great how-to like book. It's really just getting raw with yourself and how you want to be relentless and a cleaner. And it's great. Like there's some grit in there. It's very Dave Goggin like, where it's just in your face. And I like that. Yeah. And then 3, what's really bumped up there is the gap in the game. You have to be able to set yourself up for humility of like what's happened in my past and all these events that will slingshot me into the future, and get away from comparing yourself with people, because you have your own journey. And the only way to do that is through your own gains that you've made day to day, hour by hour. Yeah.
Dude, those are 3 great book recommendations. I'll throw them in the description. Well, Tyler, for those that, I mean, you have an inspiring story, and I think that people should reach out to you because right now I'm seeing I wouldn't quite call it an exodus, but I'm seeing a lot of people go from retail or credit union to broker and stuff like that. And it sounds like you've even created some resources and some training. So if people want to learn more about you or learn more from you, what are some good ways that they can either reach out or access you or your information?
Hit me up on Instagram, growing a YouTube channel, just getting started, obviously. But like, I love being a teacher. I love being a mentor. So steward is the way that I like to be friendly with everybody else. I honestly don't probably believe in myself as much as I should. I think we're all that way. So being a steward's like a lot easier. Like, hey man, I got you. I'm right here. I'm side by side with you. Trench, let's go. Let's do this. But then if you ask me to like be a leader, I'm like, yeah, like where's my people?
Right.
So
yeah.
I like being a steward, but I'm down to help out anybody, pick my brain. I mean, heck, we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, we all want to succeed. So
hell yeah.
Let's go be rich instead of king.
I love it, dude. I'm with you on that. Okay, well, I'll put your Instagram and your YouTube in the description here so that people can access you. I think it would also be cool, if you're watching this, I've seen Tyler on video. He's actually really good being on camera, and I haven't seen his how to be a broker content, but I can only imagine his fun content is great. If his fun content's great and polished and well made, I can only imagine that the stuff on how to be a mortgage broker is fantastic. So I think that would be a worthwhile resource. So reach out to Tyler if you're not already connected to him. I think he's going to be a phenomenal resource. And thank you for checking out this episode of the Lendsetter Show. Thanks for being on, Tyler.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.